and welcome to a Raising Up Indie Voices special. Today we're going to be talking about SPFBO, which is the self-published fantasy blog off. It's a competition hosted by one of the greats in indie publishing, Mark Lawrence, and in it 300 indie titles compete for one spot at winning for a year. It is a huge endeavor. There are 10 blogs that review 30 books apiece, selecting one finalist and then pitting those 10 finalists up for the grand prize. I have entered it this year with Where Shadows Lie, which is my debut, so have 299 others. So today I want to talk about them. I want to discuss some of the amazing titles that are my competition, but also my joy to discover and read. So we're going to go into that in just a moment. I want to talk a little bit about my process here because there are so many titles. I'm going to do these in batches of 30. So these first 30, and then if you are in the competition and you do not see your name in here and you have not yet filled out my form, I have a form on the SPFBO Facebook page. Go there, fill it out, and I will keep doing these as long as I can or until we're completely out of books, because every single one of these titles is published by someone who wants their book to find its readers, and if I can be any part of that, it would be my absolute pleasure and delight. So again, if you are in the competition and you do not see your name appear in the credits below, don't worry, I'm getting to you, and if you haven't filled out the form, I don't know about you, so go do it. Alright, let's launch right in. Book number 1, A Wind from the Wilderness by Suzanne Rowntree. After a black magic ritual goes wrong, young Lucas Bessarion wakes up hundreds of years into his future to find one set of invaders occupying his homeland and a massive army of new invaders on their way from the west. The year is 1097. Welcome to the First Crusade, when war is holy, love is fatal, and family is everything. This book is still in the competition. It is part of a series, and Wind in the Wilderness is a historical fantasy featuring meticulous research. I've heard it's really historically accurate, and it probably will appeal to fans of City of Brass. It is a current semi-finalist over at the Fantasy Hive with some excellent early comments. It's actually high on my to-read list because it has one of the most gorgeous covers in this competition. It has enchanted me. It is described by Sarah Chorn at Bookworm Blues as tragedy, drama, greed, devotion, and absolute delight. Go check it out. The next book, Calico Thunder Rides Again, by T.A. Hernandez. In an alternate Prohibition-era America, Jake Strickland owns and runs a magical traveling circus featuring death-defying acrobatics, a brave griffin trainer, and a fearsome dragon named Calico Thunder. But when dangerous mobsters come to collect an old debt, Jake must resort to desperate measures to save the circus and all those who call it home. Can he pay back the mob before it's too late? If so, what will it cost him? This is still in the competition, and I love kind of smaller scale fantasies, especially that don't involve saving the world. So if you're looking for a more slice of life, lower belly of society, not necessarily princesses and lords and all of that, this is probably one that you will enjoy tremendously. So again, that is Calico Thunder Rides Again by T.A. Hernandez. Next, we're going to talk about Dragon's Reach by J.A. Andrews. Sable, a reluctant thief from the slums, can feel truth when people speak. Unfortunately, no one else can sense the lies coming from the mighty Kalesh Empire. This is also still in the competition. It is part of a series and is a semi-finalist. So I've heard nothing but good things. I've heard this book will just move you and take you places. I am a huge fan of dragons, and I know a lot of other people are, so if you love dragons and being transported to other worlds, go check out Dragon's Reach by J.A. Andrews. Next, Dragon Vane, Book 1, by Brian D. Anderson. It was a top 5 finalist in the 2015 Audible Book of the Year for fantasy. This adrenaline-fueled epic has it all: magic, dragons, time travel, war, romance, and much more. A must-read for any fan of the fantasy genre. And it also has elements of science fiction in it. I am actually halfway through this one on Audible, and it is well deserved. The Audible narrator is absolutely fabulous. It's a really fun story. It starts out in a very unusual place in the middle of one of the world wars. It immediately just takes you to another place. I really am loving this. So if you too want to have a cool, kind of unusual portal fantasy, go check out Dragon Vane by Brian D. Anderson. Next up, Legacy of Bones by Kirk Dougal, I think. Legacy of Bones, A Tale of Bone and Steel, Book 1, is Game of Thrones meet the Greek tragedy of Metis. The story revolves around the Staghorn family, Jira, Keely, and Dax, and their battles against the rebirth of an evil emperor that promises the death of magic. The series delivers adventure, heartache, a search for meaning, all wrapped up in an epic fantasy package and grimdark bow. Love that description. Legacy of Bones repeatedly asks characters about their faith, in themselves, in others, in their government, and in something larger than themselves. If you've seen my recent video about developing fantasy religions and mythos, this is something I feel very passionate about. I love books that create their own religion and mythology and really asks characters to get into it and to question themselves and the world around them. So if you, like me, cannot get enough of philosophical pondering within fantasy novels, check out Legacy of Bones by Kirk Dougal. Next is Netherlight. It is still in the competition, as was the previous one. Sorry for not mentioning that. This Netherlight is by Netherlight. I can speak today. Is by Sean Paul Stevens. When refugee Guyen washes up in the land of his enemies, he knows he will fight, but soon finds himself falling down a well of wonder and improbability. And when his brother falls into a dark, unnatural sleep, only a dangerous old magic and new friends can save him. Epic fantasy full of hope and adventure set in an oil-lit 18th century world for fans of Patrick Rothfuss, Brandon Sanderson, Neil Gaiman, Mark Lawrence, and V.E. Schwab. It is part of a series, and Netherlight is set in a world just removed from our own. It's a grown-up fantasy with mature themes. Its uniqueness lies in the realism and the mirror it holds up to the struggles that we all experience. I'm very excited about this. I love anything that is set in like the 17, 18, and 1900s-esque fantasy world. It's just a love of mine. I'm kind of done with the medieval world. I've seen it a lot, and I'm on to something new. I'm evolving. So I'm very, very excited about this, even though I can never pronounce it because Netherlight seems to get stuck on my tongue, which is a good thing, actually. I like things that I have to struggle with. It makes me feel like I'm achieving something. I'm very curious about this one. I love the, darkness and the, realism meets hope and adventure. It usually comes out with something that I, as a person, really enjoy. So if you think you do too, Netherlight by Sean Paul Stevens is still in the competition, and you should go find it. Next is Of Shadows and Blood by J.T. Williams. Stripped of his powers and suffering from vampirism, Keelan, the rogue elf, must find a cure before the beast within takes control. But the Shadowlands of the East are not a place for a pale elf. So this is, again, part of a series, and this all of J.T. Williams' books have been described as a blending of R.A. Salvatore's vivid combat with Martin's brutality and shock. They kill characters a lot, be warned. And it is there's a lot, apparently, of just, like, the nature of the story itself has a lot of different types of characters, and it is, again, a nice, like, ensemble, and yes. I'm excited about this one, mostly because I love vampirism in, like, unusual settings, and I really hope this is one such book. And yeah, I'm excited about this one. I don't know a ton about it, which is why I'm kind of stuttering a little bit, but Of Shadow and Blood by J.T. Williams is one that I am curious about. Also, inner struggle, where, you have to fight yourself or fight something within you, appeals to me a lot as someone who deals with a lot of health problems, so kudos for that. Those kind of heroes inspire me. Let's uplift them. Next is Radio by Jay Rushing, who was here on the channel a while back, and you should check out his interview. It was a ton of fun. So, in Radio, in 1928's Paris, betrayal forces the god Marduk into a new opium-riddled body of a jazz guitarist, and he hates jazz. Desperate, he must rely on the few friends he has left, and one terrifying enemy, to stop those like him from weaponizing the religious imagery they've used for centuries, all through the abuse of a technology he created, his radio. This is still in the competition and features 1920s old gods, opium, jazz, and mind control. It's a trip. I strongly recommend it. Go buy it. It's a ton of fun and very unusual. It's a fairly quick read and absolutely worth every single page. Next is Shadow of a Dead God. It is still in the competition and is by the wonderful Patrick Samphire. A dead god, a brutal murder. So how does a second-rate mage, broke, traumatized, and with a habit of annoying the wrong people, supposed to prove his innocence when everyone thinks he's guilty? Just staying alive is going to take every trick Menic Thorn knows, but a new dark power is rising in Agathos, and all that stands in its way is one damaged mage, not maze. I can speak today. Apologies, Patrick. Apparently words fail me with the inherent awesomeness of this book. I read the first chapter of this early in the competition and was just like, well, you're my direct competition. I'm screwed. This is amazing and hysterical, and I'm laughing my butt off right at the beginning. So, best of luck. I'm counting on you to take it all the way. Next is Shadows of Creation by Ryan D. Mayer. Shadows is a classic epic fantasy written in a modern, fast-paced style. It's suitable for adults and young adult readers alike, featuring elves, elemental magic, and mysterious plot twists that leave the reader looking for more. An ancient darkness has awoken, threatening the world of Turina. The future falls on a cast of unlikely characters who find themselves not only battling the darkness, but their own demons. It focuses a lot on mental health, grief, loss, and the perseverance of the human spirit. Also includes two very strong female protagonists, which I am always a fan of. This sounds a lot like a more classic epic fantasy with a lot of, elves and magic and big threats. And what I love about it is it sounds like it's probably a, unlikely heroes, reluctant heroes having to band together, and I love it when there's an ensemble cast in those type of fantasies where it's not one hero going off and saving the world, but it's a group of people who don't all have the skills needed to do this, but together they form one complete adventure, and I hope that's what it is, because I am 100% there for it. Yeah, absolutely excited. It is still in the competition, and I have high hopes for it. The next book is Shields in Shadow by Andy Peliquin, who I have a wonderful D&D podcast which airs usually on Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, although this week we're going to be doing it on Tuesdays because Thanksgiving, at least in Canada, where Andy lives, which is great. because it means I get a Monday night off. Anyways, Shields in Shadow. A vast barbarian horde is on the march. One hardened captain and his elite commandos are the only hope of salvation. Ancient Roman Legion meets modern special ops tactics. If you like square-jawed heroes, well-oiled military action, and epic world building, then you'll love this gripping novel series. And yes, it is part of a series, The Silent Champions. It has some LGBTQ plus characters, which is great. Also, Andy is great, and I am a huge fan of his, so go support him right now. He is also my direct competition, and I am also doubly screwed because apparently I have a long road ahead. So, Andy's books are amazing. This one is just... I love ancient Roman Legion themed stuff. It tickles me pink as an Italian, so it is absolutely one of the top books on my just giggles about military. Which, if you know me at all, it's something I do a lot. Tactics is my bread and butter. I love it. I'll play Risk until like 3 a.m. in the morning and just be like, what, sleep? Don't make me sleep. I can never sleep. So, again, if you like military action, check out Andy Peliquin's Shields in Shadow. I feel like I'm getting sillier and sillier as I go, so bear with me. Next, The Child of Silence by Joseph O. Doran. You've never met a hero like Ayada before. This profoundly disabled young girl has grown up unable to even speak to those around her, enduring terrible prejudice every day, not least from her mother, who is, unfortunately, the Empress. But when her magic gives her the ability to communicate for the first time in her life, she will be dragged into a civil war that threatens to destroy the carefully engineered social order of her world. And yet, while the eyes are all on the war at home, a far greater threat looms in the dark of the night sky. The inspiration for the story, as per the author, came from both their time working as a special ed school teacher and the fact that they wanted to write a story with a protagonist unlike anything they had seen in fantasy before. The main character, Aida, was the result, a young girl with a profoundly complex physical difficulty, subjected to prejudice her whole life, and yet very much the hero of her own tale. Joseph, thank you. This is also what I try to write. Team Disabled Princesses for the win. I hope that you go very far in the competition because yay disabled voices. I am super excited about this. I was not aware that this had a disabled character because I hadn't come across this book when I was checking out all of the ones like in my bracket and some of the others kind of at random. Now I must read this book. So if you are a big fan of unusual protagonists, especially disabled ones, please, please, please check out The Child of Silence by Joseph R. Doran. And next up, we have a book that is on my Kindle right now because the moment I saw the title, I had to have it. It's called The Dragon's Banker by Scott Warren. A struggling merchant banker becomes embroiled in a dragon's plot to launder its hoard into the economy of a trade city. He must manage to build a network of fantasy businesses while fending off rivals, the authorities, and managing the fickle temperament of the dragons themselves. A fun, witty, page-turning story of adventure, and the reviewers have described it as light-hearted breath of fresh air in a sea of grimdark offerings. It is still in the competition. Most people who read it are shocked at how well the novel concept is executed. Dragons and economics are certainly rare bedfellows, and rarer still is the story where the latter is the star of the show. Scott, thank you. I love slice of life fantasy, even more when there are dragons, even more when it has a giant banking theme. This is basically all I dream about when I close my eyes at night. I want to know exactly how much money the main character has at all times. Name of the Wind, that was my favorite part. It's the part everyone else gets annoyed at. So, thank you for writing me my slice of life resource management book with dragons. You are now my best friend. I know we've never met, but you should know that. Just, take it as it is. Alright, so moving on from that is The Last Benediction in Steel. Still part of the competition, has not been eliminated, by Kevin Wright. Lee Child's Jack the Ripper meets Game of Thrones. Mystery, murder, and mayhem. It's a noir detective story told through the lens of medieval fantasy set during the 100-Year War. Yes, yes. Again, slice of life, not big, huge, save the word stakes. It's a murder mystery in fantasy. What a fun genre mashup. So, The Last Benediction of Steel by Kevin Wright. Go find it. Get your mystery on. See if you can solve it before for the protagonist. That's always my, like, I love it. I love it when I figure it out before them. It makes me feel very clever, even though the characters are probably way more clever than me because they're doing it in real time, and I'm just, like, sitting there for 3 days trying to put all the puzzle pieces together in this, like, alternate reality where I have all the time in the world. So, it'll make you feel good, unless you think too hard about it. Anyhow, that is The Last Benediction Steel. Next up, we have The Lone Wolf. I do not know who the author is for this, because they did not tell me, and I forgot to pull it up. But anyways, the normally warring orc tribes have united, and they are well armed and disciplined. But who has the strength of will to unite the tribes? Join Remnants, a young ranger, Kaladin, and a one-of-a-kind rogue, and an unusual cast of companions who find themselves on the same path to discover the answers to these mysteries. It is still in the competition. It's called The Lone Wolf. It sounds like a adventuring party sort of, like, D&D-esque fantasy, which, as a player of D&D on Deranged and Questing, I am so excited about. So go check out The Lone Wolf. And next, on the L word, W word, The Lost War is next by Justin Lee Anderson. So, The Lost War is an epic fantasy mystery set in the aftermath of a devastating war. Aranok, the first Dryad, I'm gonna just butcher that word all over the place, to be appointed the king's envoy, is tasked with leading a group of strangers across country to restore an exiled foreign queen to her throne. But at every step, a new mystery complicates their mission. As bodies drop around them, the new threats emerge and lies are revealed. Can Aranok bring his companions together and uncover the conspiracy that threatens the kingdom? Well, I hope he does, because I want to read this book and I want them to succeed. Justin is a wonderful and amazing author. This book is based on history, mythology, and the etymology of Edinburgh. It also features some asexual characters, which is awesome! Yay, inclusion! So, The Lost War by Justin Lee Anderson. It is beautifully written. I've read a little bit of this, and absolutely check it out. He's an amazing author. Next up, we have The Origin of Birds in the Footprints of Writing by Raymond St. Elmo. A man determined to be the most serious. Being on the planet, finds his orderly life haunted by a mysterious manuscript. He decides to summon the ghost of George Louis Burgess to resolve the matter. Shenanigans ensue. It's a book about books, and it has the words shenanigans in the description, which is basically like the light and I am the moth. Anything that involves shenanigans will draw me in, and I am powerless to resist. So, Raymond St. Elmo, I know that you have a reputation for writing wild and ridiculous and wonderful stuff. I am so there for it. Give me my zany nonsense about books within books. Go find The Origin of Birds in the Footprints of Writing by Raymond St. Elmo. I am excited about this one. Next is The Swordsmans Lament by G.M. White. When death strikes the royal family, the king's champion is the focus of suspicion. With the forces of the palace and the city mobilized against him, can he discover the truth and clear his name? Another mystery, another frame for murder person. I love that this is something that the genre seems to be featuring more and more. I am so down for these kind of not the traditional heroes, instead of the, king or prince or something being the focus, we have, the king's champion, and he's trying to clear his name. I love those kind of stories. So, a plus side of this is the main character in this is gay. And I'm there for it. There are also a couple of trans supporting characters, and the book has a lot of LGBTQ plus elements. Give me more of that in my fantasy. It is the number one thing. If you are inclusive in your fantasy, I will 100% support you and cheer you on and be super, super, super excited and send it to all my friends and tell everyone to go read it. So everyone listening, go read The Swordsman's Lament by G.M. White. Next, let's go down to Timberwolf by Dominic Adler. Espionage adventure set in a world similar to, but nothing like our own. Sorcery, war, treachery, and old gods abound. It is still in the competition. It involves old gods, which to me says internal mythology, and we've already discussed how much I absolutely love mythological books. Also, treachery. Give me some traitors. Give them to me. I love them. I want to pet them and give them hot cocoa and tell them to go back to being treacherous monsters because they are more entertaining than their heroic counterparts. So, yes, give me treachery. Doesn't matter if it's the heroes or the villains. I just give it. I want it. Anyhow, moving on. Trial of Thorns by Stacey Tombly. Kaelin of the Shadow Court has the opportunity to reverse her banishment by entering the Trial of Thorns. But the hardest part of the trials won't be the shadow Yurverns or mind-twisting mages. It will be facing those she's betrayed, like Prince Ravlin, the brother of the Fae Kaelin killed as an adolescent. Only one can win, and Rev will do everything in his power to make sure Kaelin doesn't survive the trials. Let's talk about tournaments for a second. They're so much fun. Anytime it's just characters up for all these like weird, zany, wonderful, like incredibly difficult challenges, creates a framework of a story that always like moves along at a fast pace and is fun and is active and is super, super enjoyable. So, Trial of Thorns by Stacey Tombly. Trombly. I can speak today. Anyways, if you're looking for something that has probably quite a nice fast pace, it sounds like there's a lot of like infighting in politics and conniving and stuff like that, and it's a tournament arc, so go read it. It's going to be a blast. It is still in the competition, and I wish you the best of luck. Next, let's move on to Voice of War by Zach Argyle. Voice of War is the story of a soon-to-be father with a dark voice in his head and his struggles to protect his family from a growing evil. It's filled with exotic creatures, wondrous locations, and a unique magic system tied closely to the plot. Readers say it's perfect for fans of Brandon Sanderson. The story has a lot of unique elements, myriad of new creatures, a novel magic system, and a story where the protagonist's spouse and mother is actually alive! Yay! Thank you for not killing us. As women, we appreciate it. Great deal. We would prefer to be alive than dead. So thank you! We prefer not to be the tragic element in a backstory. I mean, I'm not saying I speak for all women, but thank you. Thank you, Zach. I appreciate it. Also, it sounds like a really, really interesting protagonist. Soon-to-be parents or parents as protagonists in stories. I love it. I have like this super, super soft spot for it. So, it sounds like it's going to be a excellent, very well thought out, very unusual fantasy with a lot of thought given to the world building. And that is something that I think as fantasy readers we can all agree is pretty great. It's usually why we get into the genre. So check out Voice of War by Zach Argyle. And let's see if he holds up to Brandon Sanderson. That's high praise. Next is War of the God Queen by David Hambling. Jessica is abducted and dragged from back 3,000 years in time as host mother for the monstrous spawn. Jessica has other ideas. She escapes and rescues a group of women from other times to rally the Bronze Age inhabitants against the seemingly invincible spawn. She is no warrior and seemingly has no skills relevant to this harsh world, but one should never underestimate the power of a group of determined women. Yes. No one should. We be mighty. This reverses a lot of the traditional genre tropes, where, for example, when someone from the modern world is viewed as a wizard in the ancient times, or a helpless child who knows nothing, those are reversed. In a patriarchal, warrior-led society, are the women smarter than the men? Also, epic fantasy meets Lovecraftian horror. It's apparently, basically, Mary Poppins versus the spawn of Cthulhu on the Mesopotamian battlefield. This is like one of the best strange attractors I have ever heard. Mary Poppins meets Cthulhu would be enough of a strange attractor to be like, yes, give me that. Give me that right now. But add onto it on the Mesopotamian battlefield, and suddenly, like, the granddaughter of the ancient linguist in me is like, oh yes, please, tell me more. Also, I just really want Mary Poppins to be in this now. Like, I'm pretty sure she's probably not because of copyright violations. But I really, really, really want a group of determined women fighting oppression led by actual literal Mary Poppins. So, David, please get on that and get the copyright necessary to write this as your sequel, because I would very much like to see it. It's a personal favor. Thank you very much. I'm counting on you. All right. Moving on. A King's Bargain, Legend of Tal, Book 1. It has been eliminated, unfortunately. We are now entering into the books that have been eliminated. I tried to kind of organize them in that direction. But it is a fantastic book from everything I hear by J.D.L. Rosell. The Legend of Tal Harfell is sung across Westreach, and with each telling, the tale grows taller. But he's never claimed to be more than a man. Witcher meets Name of the Wind in the Sword and Sorcery tale. This is a classic epic fantasy updated for modern sensibilities. It made it to semi-finalists on the Weatherwax group before it got cut. So this means it's great. Weatherwax has been a very, very fast blog and has been eliminating people very quickly. So, like, where you fall in the competition at this stage is as much to do with how fast your blog got through you and not necessarily on the quality of your work. So please do consider picking it up. Also, the judges are very much led by their own personal tastes. All of these books are awesome and absolutely deserve your attention. So please keep listening, because there are some great ones still to come. As I said, King's Bargain, the first book of Legend of Tal by J.D.L. Rosell, is very much apparently a tale of tall tales. I love things like this. I love the unreliable narrator in Name of the Wind. I loved Big Fish, the movie. Anything where just things get blown so far out of proportion that you have no idea what is true and what is not will just touch my heart and take me places. So check it out if you too love being transported. Next, A Princess Errand by Robert Zangari. An epic fantasy adventure that turns the chosen one trope on its head. It features older protagonists who face conflicts appropriate for their level of competency. Robert, thank you. I think I've spoken about parents, but really this trend just holds true for everything. If I get an older protagonist, I think I said this in my last video, I want a little granny, like, wielding a butcher's knife and taking on the world with, like, guilt trips. This is my dream. So we're getting much closer. And anything that puts the chosen one trope on its head is, again, one of those things that I've done and I love to see done. So kudos, Robert. I am very excited about this book, and I hope it does fabulously. Our next title is Across the Broken Stars by Jed Hearn. Set in a world where people live on discs that float in space, a cowardly war deserter seeks redemption by helping a young fugitive search for a mystical safe haven. Jed was on my channel a little bit earlier to talk about this and other things. He is an amazing writer, and I am very, very, very excited about this. I love kind of surreal settings for fantasy, and I also love redemption arcs when they're done well, and I truly do believe that this author has the chops to do it very, very well. So if you are looking for very unique fantasy, go check out Across the Broken Stars by Jed Hurd. I promise you will not be disappointed. Our next novel is Curse of the Genry by Stephanie Barr. A talented swordsman who has married into an Amazon-like tribe of women must band with other husbands and Genry on a quest to rescue their wives and sisters. To succeed, he'll have to keep this diverse band of angry, frightened people on speaking terms and also come to grips with his magical potential that he didn't even know he had. And he's being led by 6 critical telepathic kittens he never wanted. So up till the last line, I was like, okay, no, this sounds interesting, sounds cool, okay. 6 critical telepathic kittens is just basically crack to me. This book has humorous elements, but a great deal of darkness as well. So if you like sarcastic felines, it's for you. And guess what? I do like sarcastic felines, so I guess this book is for me. I suppose I must now read Curse of the Genry while petting my cats, and also probably drinking tea and giving them treats, because I know my cats are sarcastic felines, and they are always asking for treats. And so now you Stephanie Barr, you are responsible for my cats getting fat, and I may never forgive you for this, but also I'm going to buy your book, and I'm going to love it. So you all should too, and also pet your cats for me. I expect many, many purring felines in all the houses, everywhere, and if you do not have a cat, I'm not saying I'm judging you, but I'm judging you. Except if it's allergies. It's acceptable. Otherwise, I'm kind of judging you. Cats are awesome. Anyhow, next book is Exile by Martin Otten. A classic fantasy story with master swordsmen, kidnapped nobles, lost kingdoms, interfering wizards, and powerful goddesses. Yay for some classics in here. The genre as a whole is going in so many different directions that sometimes a return to classics is great. Absolutely check it out if you just want a breath of that like childhood nostalgia of going back to all of these tropes that we know and love, even if I'm fairly critical of the old tropes and all of that, but at the same time I'm a sucker for them. I love them. So go check out Exile. You might be it might be just what you're in the mood for. Or you could check out Flames over Frosthelm by Dave Dobson. Martin Mingenstern and Boog Eggstorm are provisional inspectors, fresh from out of Inquisitor Guild training. Assigned a mundane task tracking down stolen jewelry, they instead uncover a mysterious cult set on destroying the city. They earn the enmity of a vicious noble. The chief inquisitor gets bought off and goes rogue. Barbarians seize them, and they are sentenced to death. Twice. This is a mix of epic fantasy, swashbuckling, mystery, and comedy. Kind of Princess Bride meets CSI. I love it. Again, Strange Attractor will pretty much get me every single time. So, this author has talked to me a little bit about their process, and in imagining a new fantasy world, they departed from traditional fantasy gender roles and hierarchies such as existed in medieval times. Frosthelm society has men and women filling all jobs and positions. Nothing too radical, but some readers have found it interesting or rewarding as a different take. I am always excited about that. While I really, really appreciate a setting that is historically accurate, I also really, really appreciate when authors go off and just decide, well, you know what, the real Middle Ages was kind of a horrible time for this minority or that minority, and I'm writing fiction, so let me do something different. Both are totally valid. I am really, really, really excited about this one. The main character apparently is very privileged, and the author is aware of that, and he makes significant progress in understanding the bias and privileges he has, and is becoming motivated to change his way of thinking. This to me spells a fantasy that is actually has a really complex characters, and even though it's apparently quite, funny and zany, I like those kind of books who have an underlying complexity, and I think this one will. So, Flames Over Frosthelm by Dave Dobson. Next up is Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. A charming Regency romance with a hint of magic. Cursed by a fairy, Theodora Eatings has become prone to scandal, though she's determined to help her cousins make a good match. Mysterious Lord Elias Wilder says he can help her, but is he also her other half? Half a Soul is both a fantasy of manners and a satire of English society during the time period. The main character, Dora, is also coded as autistic, and I'm so there for it. I love fantasy of manners, and I love satire, so this idea of charming Regency romance, but with an autistic lead, is just, yes, I want that explored. I don't know if this is Own Voices, but I hope it is, and even if it's not, I hope it's done very, very, thoughtfully, and if it is, and I'm sure it is, it will be wonderful. I am just so pleased to have this on my list and have this be part of the competition. It has unfortunately been eliminated, but you should absolutely still check it out and support it. And speaking of, we're going to move on to another Own Voices story. This is Heart and Soul Fist by Chris Ng. It is about a 17-year-old Jane who has to balance high school with her secret life as a spirit warrior. Her life gets turned upside down when her old school clan tries to marry her off to Andrew, the future guardian of the spirit world. While she's trying to figure out her feelings for Andrew, evil spirits try to steal his power. Can she date him while trying to save his life? This is an Own Voices Asian American story with some LGBTQ representations, lots of positive relationships, both romantic, platonic, and familiar, and an averted missing abusive parent trope. I'm very excited about this. It is on my list. I love everything about this concept. I love kind of a different take. Fantasies that aren't just Western are some of my favorites. And this is one. So go check out Heart and Soul Fist by Chris Ng. And that is where we're going to stop today. That has been 30 indie titles, all in SPFBO. We will be back with more. So, for all of you who have watched all the way through, thank you from the bottom of my heart. It means the world to me. I have been chattering on for like 40 minutes at this point, and I hope that in that list you have found at least one or two books that you cannot wait to read. For all those who are still in the competition, I wish you the very best of luck. For all those who are not, thank you for participating. Thank you for putting your books out there and for letting me find out about them. I'm so excited to be part of this amazing community of writers who are taking fantasy in so many different directions and are just creative and engaging and wonderful and asking big questions. You inspire me absolutely every single day. If you are interested in seeing more videos like this, please consider liking, subscribing, sharing, shouting about this, watching some of my other videos. It helps the algorithms, and I really want to keep doing content like this. It is why I got into YouTube, was to lift up other indie voices, especially Own Voices and minority ones. I think it is so important to support each other. We have the big five to compete with, and we're definitely not competing with each other in the indie space. So, If you want to support me again, please, please, please consider liking, subscribing, watching some videos, sharing this with your friends. If you are an indie author in SPFBO and have not filled out that form, do it right now. It is on the Facebook page. I will feature you. It would be my pleasure, but I can't do it if you don't tell me about it. So, fill out that form. Keep watching, subscribe, and if you want to check out my books, they're both on Amazon. The one I entered into SPFBO is Where Shadows Lie. It features a dead chosen one, a disabled and LGBTQ princess, and a wildly diverse cast of characters, all making mistakes and having shenanigans. There, I got that word in one more time. So, that is available on Amazon in ebook, paperback, and hardback. Also, my other novel, NaCl, Eye of the Storm, is there as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fabulous day. Till next time, ciao.